Hey everyone, so a few years ago I filmed some videos on how to get to sleep on time when you are sleep deprived or you're staying up late. And some of those videos actually took off a bit because there was a lot of students or people who really had nothing to do all day and all night and just let themselves play video games all day. In fact, I got a lot of comments on those videos saying, "Oh, I'm watching this at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 2 a.m." And so in this video, now that we're in the midst of quarantine and working from home and virtual learning, I would suspect there's a lot of people who are in similar situations. So I wanted to do an update video. Now, this video is a mix of a listicle as well as a experiment and kind of self guinea pig experiment on what I've tested myself to improve my sleeping habits because although they're better than average in certain ways, I know people who really struggle with insomnia and so forth, even though they're genuinely healthy. And they don't really listen to like just standard principles like stop looking at electronics all night. I still have issues myself. So let me just kind of go through some of the things I've experimented with and the things that worked and didn't. Let's start off with one thing that didn't work so well. So the iPhone naturally has a built-in app blocking system. Now I've attempted to use this for almost a year now, and it is really quite ineffective. Simple things like blocking it, but then having an option where you can easily unblock it just makes it almost useless. Basically, what this app does is it's very customizable. You can set it to any time, any duration to block all apps or certain apps. And I set it to block all apps after 11 a.m. Unfortunately, what happens is, although it decreases my frequency of use to turn in terms of the breadth of apps, because it's too much of a hassle to unblock each one, I still unblock certain apps with a click of my hand or my finger because it literally gives you an option to unblock the app if you try and use it during this time. And it'll let you unblock it for 15 minutes or for the rest of the day. And sometimes I'll choose rest of the day or sometimes 15 minutes. But essentially, this thing is near useless. So I'm going to keep it on because I think it's still a slight deterrent, a slight reminder. But for me, it's just not so helpful. As far as the principle of what we're trying to do here, that leads me to my next tip, which is it is so crucial to stop using electronics after a certain amount of time at night. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to rely simply on the fact that it's blue light blocking, because yes, blue light does keep you up at night, but it doesn't have to do with that because your phones and your computers can have free software, which I've installed. iPhone has a built-in software, and then you can get Flux on your computer, which automatically adjusts your screen coloring to reduce blue light emissions after a certain time. I usually set mine to around sunset, sunrise, to emulate how our ancestors were. And that kind of prevents your body from thinking that it's still daylight time. What I'm talking about actually is the fact that social media apps, and most apps for that matter, are uh, super addictive. They've invested millions of dollars to make them super addictive and continuously attract you to keep watching. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of these things. And so, a lot of novices to self development, they have this flawed belief that, well, screw all those time management and productivity tabs. It's all about pure willpower. Use your discipline. And if you're not disciplined enough to not do it, then you're not worthy as a person. And that's flawed, overly simplistic, somewhat ignorant advice in my opinion, because you have a limited reserve of willpower every day, as science shows, and it gets depleted like a muscle by the end of the day. So, especially on a very grueling day, you're going to be more susceptible than ever to being sucked in because you have limited willpower reserves and you're fighting a multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar app or platform that has spent all this money uh, mastering your psychological hot buttons. So the goal here is to really just not use any apps at night, not to use your strength of willpower to try and beat them. Because it does not mean that you're not worthy as a person and you're just not awesome enough if you fail at that, because most people do. So then the question becomes, how exactly do you stop from using these apps late at night? Because that's usually one of the key causes. I mean, sure, all those other tips, drinking green tea, eating healthy, not eating too much meat, getting your omega-3s in, all those things help. Closing out all the light in your room to emulate sunset. Those things definitely help. But at the end of the day, usually the biggest cause is your device and your screen. When I ask people who struggle with sleep, chances are they will admit that they were on their phones or on the computer or watching TV late into the night and often into the morning. And so I've experimented with this, and I don't have some golden magic pill to fix this formula. But some suggestions might be to literally lock your phone away, put it in a different area of your room, like put it into your closet or your drawers, or literally lock it with a safe, or just make it harder than a click of a touch to like unlock it. Another thing you might just want to do is delete the most problem-solving apps. Don't even allow yourself to get onto Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. Another thing is to look at your habits. This is something that many people, that's really the trigger. They have a habit of doing certain things at night. Sometimes that's watching 3 YouTube videos. Sometimes that's watching 5 Instagram stories, or flipping on to a dating app, or watching porn, or doing whatever. And that is a habit that's been ingrained in you for years. And so how do you actually break that? Well, you can't expect to break that overnight. What you can do is, move it earlier in the day. So I've experimented with this, and I think it's somewhat helpful. If you start watching TV at 12, midnight every night, what if you moved it up to 11 a.m. and then 10 a.m. so that when you start your habit, it's a little bit earlier. And then when you finish it, it's still within the time for you to go to sleep. In addition to that, what you can do is you can have triggers that kind of will enforce that. So, maybe you're watching TV a lot anyways, but you turn the lights off, which you usually do when you go to sleep, earlier in the day, which can kind of trigger you, okay, it's kind of sleep time. The truth of the matter is that there's no magic pill. We live in a really screwed up modern world with all these temptations, with not your best intentions in mind. They just want you to observe and continue consuming so they can make more money. And so, I simply recommend baby steps. I've found that it's helpful to kind of baby step it. So, go to sleep 10 minutes earlier, and then change that to 20 minutes earlier after a month, and just slowly try and gradually make it through. I know some people like to just do it all at once, and that works for some people. They just quit cold turkey and they say, you know what, I'm going to go sleep 3 hours early now, and that's just how it's going to be. I found that it's not that effective, but for some people, they need that commitment. People are different. So that's what I've learned from my experimentation. I have not solved it completely, and it sucks, but hopefully these tips help. If you have your own tips that you found useful, please share them with our community. We would all love to get better at this.